God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, for you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So here's a confession. I love flash mobs. Like, love them. Capital L, capital O, capital V, capital E. Love the flash mobs. Why? Well, I happen to be one of those people who stores up a lot of energy in this here body. And a lot of the time, I sit in church wanting to express myself, but feeling really, really, really stifled by the expectations of piety, of being quiet and reverent. I think I'm naturally a Pentecostal, y'all. I just happened to be born into the UCC. It wasn't my fault. Amen. So we've done 2 flash mobs in the last year at this church, and both times it feels like this explosion of fabulous. And you know, I'm queer, so I love me some fabulous, right? It's like the nightclub meets worship. Like the masses are saying, forget mass, let's move. I love it. I love it. I also love flash mobs because they feel faithful to me. They're disruptive of the status quo. They work because they interrupt business as usual, kind of like God. They're planned, but they still contain surprise, kind of like God. They make you pay attention and lean in and look closer, kind of like God. It's super messy and people forget their dance moves and things don't stay on the right beat, but it doesn't matter because it's alive and moving and alive and moving and alive and moving, just like who? God. Yes, Jesus, flash mobs. So we've been focusing our worship series in December in Advent on radical incarnation. Say radical incarnation. Radical, divine, flesh, divining flesh, fleshing the divine, God in skin, skin on God. Breaking down all barriers in our brains and bodies and theology and world between what's sacred and what's material. Contending with each other that you really can't draw separation between what's human and what's holy. You can't separate that stuff in our Bible, in our tradition, in our Christ, and certainly not in our bodies and us today. In fact, the binary of divine and human is worthy of being named just so we can deconstruct it. Which is what flash mobs do if they're done right. And what's a flash mob done right? A flash mob done. Bodies moving, music thumping, people witnessing, joy unspeakable. There's nothing like radically incarnated joy. Nothing like it. And let's keep it real. We've done 2 flash mobs in worship in the last year. Yeah. And those moments of radically incarnated joy where the gap between heaven and earth completely dissipates, those moments are few and far between, yes? Like I'd say at best, they're like 7% of life. I'm not talking about happiness. I'm not talking about, oh, that's nice. I'm not talking about, oh, the Christmas lights are so pretty and I feel good when I drink eggnog at holiday parties. I'm talking about radically incarnated joy. Radically incarnated joy, like laughter so deep with your best friends that you think you might get stomach cramps. Looking around a room and feeling like you'd lay down and die for anyone and everyone around you, and knowing that they feel the same, and just staying in that recognition for as long as you can. Radically incarnated joy. Music that gives you an out-of-body experience. Being the one called upon to do something absolutely no one else can do, and doing it well. Radically incarnated joy. Babies born. Families that have been torn apart by border patrol being reunited. being forgiven by someone whose only reason for forgiving you is God's grace, radically incarnated joy, dogs running off leash, wild and free, skipping and jumping and sniffing, elated to be in the woods with you. The first feel of sun on your skin in the spring. Having a dream about someone you love who's been dead a long time. And feeling like they appeared in that dream just to reassure you that they're with you, that you're not alone, the love is still true. Radically incarnated joy, beating breast cancer. Radically incarnated joy, coming out of the closet and realizing it's really better out here. Radically incarnated joy, few and far between, but oh, so good. 7% at most, but in that 7% worth all the other stuff we go through 93% of the time. Radically incarnated joy. So Mary and Elizabeth have this radically incarnated moment of joy between them in the first chapter of Luke. They both got life inside of them. They've both got some unexpected circumstances surrounding that life inside. I've never been there or done that before. They're cousins. They're women living under patriarchy. This is an intergenerational moment of incarnated joy. Elizabeth is very old. Mary is very young. Mary has traveled a long way. Elizabeth is living with a husband that can't speak. Life is completely different than the last time they hung out, and once they catch sight of each other and hear each other's voices, John leaps inside of Elizabeth, and Mary erupts into song. They embrace, they bless each other, they sing, they praise. Radically incarnated joy. So where are the lines between blessing and body, between God and human, between spiritual and material in this story? Those lines don't exist. That's how you know you've got radically incarnated joy. So, question, what makes those moments possible? What enables us to experience radically incarnated joy, we humans? What enables us to have those moments? I want to suggest some stuff that might be countercultural and might actually be hard to hear. I want to suggest that our capacity to be present and embodied during moments of radically incarnated joy have a lot to do with what we're willing to feel the other 93% of life. Shauna alluded to this earlier. I don't think you can feel radically incarnated joy without also feeling grief and boredom and letdown and excitement and desire and rage and jealousy and hope and fear and on and on. There's an author whose name I've forgotten that suggests that we have a library of feelings. I love that, a library of feelings. And the more we are willing to be in whatever feeling we are having in any given moment, the greater our library becomes. All it takes is a willingness to be fully present to how each moment feels. And it's not just about being present to our own feelings, but to the feelings associated with others, with environments, with animals and flowers, with music and art. To pay attention, deep, abiding attention to all of it. How we choose to respond to feelings is an entirely different sermon. All right? So somebody tell me later next year to preach that sermon. But for today's sermon, I am suggesting that radically incarnated joy depends upon our capacity to feel it and feel anything else. So here's the not so good news. From the moment you were born, you came into a world that told you, subtly sometimes and outright other times, that feelings were and are a liability, a weakness, a danger. And if you give in to them, you lack control, you lack power, you lack maturity and sophistication. If you are a man or you are a white person, this is doubly true for you. And I'm willing to wager that at some moment, absolutely all of us have had a moment when our survival depended upon our ability to not feel. And I bet someone who loved us or who was trying to protect us is the one who told us, hey, if you want to survive, you've got to put that feeling away. Or we watched someone older than us or bigger than us survive by putting their feelings away. And since it seemed to help them survive, we thought maybe it'd help us survive too. Monkey see, monkey do. I'm not talking about any of you, am I? So flash mob moment of truth, repressed feelings turn into violence. And that act of repression kills stuff. Whether that repression turns inward or later it comes outward, you either kill stuff inside yourself or you hurt other people. Now, I want you to hear me that there is actual punishment for feeling, for exhibiting and expressing feelings in this world, especially for boys and men. But please don't make any mistake. The punishment doesn't happen because feeling itself is bad or the presence of feelings themselves are bad. The punishment happens because of this mythology that's been constructed by patriarchy and Eurocentric philosophy that feelings render you vulnerable. And they do. The lie is that the emotional vulnerability we experience is bad. It's not. It's just true. It's just real. I want you to be vulnerable to joy. I want you to be vulnerable to love. I want you to be vulnerable to hope, which means you've got to be vulnerable to fear and despair and grief. None of those exist without the others. You can't spend your entire life trying to hide from this truth over here and then think you can walk into this truth over here. And if you try to spend your life guarding against feeling, you will live a spiritually deadened life. And as a pastor, I just simply can't recommend that. It may make you feel safer, but safe isn't faithful if you're a follower of Jesus Christ. In fact, seeking safety put Jesus on a cross. I don't want you to think that what I'm preaching on today is easy. I want to absolve us of the illusion that being a feeling person is easy. Both Mary and Elizabeth would watch the state murder their sons. Both of them. John the Baptist was beheaded. Jesus Christ was crucified. Both Mary and Elizabeth would feel a profound grief that I literally, as a mother, cannot fathom. By celebrating their radically incarnated joy today and using them as examples of how to feel it all, I'm also affirming their grief in Lent 4 months from now. It's all true. It's all real. So there's this concept in Brené Brown's work on shame resilience called foreboding joy. And she describes it as a defense mechanism. Those of us who have experienced trauma as children become masterful at foreboding joy throughout our lives. Basically, foreboding joy is when we are afraid of losing joy, so we do anything we can to sabotage it before it goes away. We do this by becoming obsessed with the future, by questioning if we are worthy to receive this joy, by downplaying the significance that this joy has for us in the moment. So here's another preachy little flash mob moment. Foreboding joy is a sin. I said it. Do not forebode joy, ever. Let it take you like a flash. Like a mob. Give yourself to joy. That grief's going to come eventually. Let yourself be in joy. Delight in it. Revel in it. Sing for joy. Dance for joy. Make love for joy. When it comes, let joy take you completely, entirely, for as long as it wants to. If you feel joy, you've been gifted from God. Unwrap it. Celebrate it. That's the season we're in. Amen.